few people know this better in the world, I think, than CBC senior international correspondent Margaret Evans in London, who spent many, many years there, still goes back and forth. Margaret, as you watch these pictures, you hear what's being said. What are you thinking?
Well, you know, I guess it's turned me into a skeptic. I want to hear what the Israeli government response is going to be. And as you have been talking about, there are a lot of obstacles still in the road. This is an initial temporary deal, which is a part of a three-part deal, and there are lots of places where it could go wrong. So we've been, called on this time and time again, so I guess I'm waiting to see both sides come out and to actually see the detail of what we've been hearing, because we've been hearing lots of tidbits, but of course the devil is always in the detail, and it sounds like they're putting off a lot of the detail until the second phase. That's why you have that worry amongst the Israeli families of the hostages who are demanding that all of, they're not happy with the deal and that it doesn't bring everybody out all at once. I think for the Palestinians in Gaza, at least it will offer some temporary respite. There's been heavy bombing over the past couple of days, more than 60 people dead there. So I'm waiting, cautiously optimistic that maybe this is a path towards the beginning of something that would change the region for the better, but that's a pretty big ask.
Yes, certainly no one is overstating this, and no one is using the language like the war is over, because it certainly doesn't appear to be so. There's been a lot of pressure internally in Israel, certainly from Benjamin Netanyahu's, the far-right members of his coalition. How is he positioned on this? People are furious with him, as I understand it, in Israel. The hostage families, average Israeli citizens are still livid with Benjamin Netanyahu. What happens with him now?
Yeah, I'd say that's a tightrope he's been walking for well over a year now. He is a political survivor. I think at the beginning of all this, nobody thought he would still be in office. Right now, all attention is on his cabinet and those hard-right nationalist members of the cabinet who see this is a great opportunity for their own aspirations, and they've got a big decision to make. They've threatened to bring his government down by pulling out if he goes ahead with the hostage deal. But if they do that, that would trigger elections, and of course it would disrupt this process, no doubt, and that would further enrage the families of the hostages, the Israelis who want to see this come to an end. But their decision is going to be about, do they stand a better chance of achieving their goals, their aspirational goals, which are ultimately the annexation of the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, moves amongst nationalist settler, Jewish settler groups who would like to even see parts of Gaza resettled. Those are their big goal dreams. So on the one hand, they want to see Israel continuing its war in Gaza, and essentially many would say that what they want is to see the Palestinians pushed out of there. And they want to be able to claim the West Bank as their own. They say they have a biblical right to it. So they're going to have to gauge where are they going to get, what's going to help them achieve their goals the most. Is it to bring down this government and potentially prolong the war in Gaza? Or is it to sit with Benjamin Netanyahu or demand concessions from him in achieving those future goals in order to stay in the cabinet? And are they also looking at the incoming U.S. administration, Donald Trump's second term? He was very favorable to some parts of their interpretation of the occupied territories in his first presidency. Are they counting on maybe having more support from him, and will they stay in? A lot of pressure on them to stay in, I would say, at this point. But that's a big backdrop of the evening as we wait to see what the Israeli government will do in terms of, rubber stamping this agreement.
Margaret, does anything surprise you about the fact that we're still waiting for a statement out of Doha? I think I think one of the traits of being a journalist, particularly in this region, is that you certainly don't get optimistic very often, and you anticipate last-minute hiccups. Anything unusual about the empty podium, or do you think that's just sort of de rigueur?
Certainly it's de rigueur, but it does make you, remind you of all the times you thought that we were on the brink of an agreement in the past. I'd also say that, there's been a lot of talk about how close they were in the spring, and it makes me think for people on all sides, of how much anguish that must fill people with. Palestinians who've lost thousands since then, more than 10,000 we hear, and the families of the hostages who saw that as a chance to bring their loved ones home, and some haven't come home since then. You sit on the edge and you hope that they're close, but the silence, there have been so many things along the way. And there are so many little things, even in the first phase, which has apparently been decided, which aren't clear. For instance, that, how do people get home on foot? The Palestinians are supposedly to be allowed to return to the north on foot, but much of the north has been changed, destroyed. The debate about what kind of buffer zone the Israelis are going to be able to keep. And then, of course, everybody's waiting for those moments of the exchanges. The first 3 hostages to be released, we understand, will be women. And in the following days, you will see the release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails as well. There are about more than 10,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails at this stage.
Okay, Margaret, hang tight. It's going to be a long few days, but important ones. That's Margaret Evans, senior international correspondent in our London bureau, long-time journalist out of that region.